So, apologies, I won't make a habit of this, but I don't think the first one really presented how I wanted. We start off with the kids still exploring the world of Pokemon. Roy's got his eyes on a Capsakid, and in the forefront you notice a very spiteful looking Wattrel. They're all scoping out a Capsakid, and Coco helps Roy bait it. All the praise Coco got made Wattrel a bit green, triggering its sibling rivalry with Coco. Roy's thinking about how delicious Capsakid would be, but then he couldn't do his report. It'll be a delay anyways though, since all the commotion spooked it off. It turns out Watt's also still struggling to fly, at least when the current's too strong. The poor flightless penguin. Plus, I also would have thought Coco was showing off, but you gotta know he's the purest of all the starters. The group are going over their discoveries for the day, and it seems like Wattrel's not the only one struggling, although he is determined to overcome it. He even snuck out for some secret training, but it wasn't long until Roy and Coco came across it. I thought it was so funny too that Roy decided to use Coco's cheer to root for Wattrel. It's just his EP is still in progress. It's a pretty lively and very entertaining moment, even if Wattrel isn't feeling it. Suddenly, an echoing roar from within the forest shakes up the ground and the tone. Despite the shock, Roy shakes it off and goes to check out the commotion. It'd almost be ominous, but there's this very light-hearted, practically circus music playing in the background that accompanies Roy's attack by a Greabard. And this good boy is owned by none other than Lime. It's like, I kinda wish he was my grandma, you know? Cause it is such a good entrance, it's eerie, and not to mention the design here is just perfect. Oh my gosh, the rap was so cool. These have sort of cropped up a few times in the most recent years, but this is the most entertained I've been by it personally. There's just so much swagger. I think it's really cool that they just happened to run into rhyme by circumstance and makes it feel like a fateful encounter. So fun that Roy almost forgot about his Royport. At this point, I had even started to think that Capsakid would have been good for Roy. Sigh. Rhyme seems to take an interest in Coco, despite it being a Wattrel episode, but before we can really explore that, she phantoms. Definitely leaves you wanting more, and I see a battle in Roy's future for sure. So, maybe these kids should be in school. The tech skills are just lacking. They carry on with the assignment though, and they're keeping the dot stands fed, don't worry. Later on, a spat breaks out between Wattrel and Coco, of which the former is definitely in the wrong. It makes it a bit harder to actually empathize with the bird, but you gotta remember this is coming from a place of insecurity, and it must have been feeling pretty guilty considering it took off. It just seems like there's a lot of sensitive little monsters this series. On the search, we see Capsakid's wound up in a pickle, so Roy decides to give it a hand. It's also one of those don't try this at home kids moments. Although Capsakid did not appreciate the hand it was lent. He's a pepper with some spice, but Roy can handle the heat. Oh, you know this kid has got seasonings back home. As he's reaching out, and in order to comfort them on, he busts out this neat little freestyle that seems to charm the Capsakid. Roy's really got a nice voice, it's very soothing, and he manages to win over the Capsakid as well. For Watts, he's really aiming for Roy's approval and is willing to fight the current for it. The winds are turbulent, but Wattrel keeps riding them, and through perseverance, it manages to snag the Capsakid. So you can really see what this brave bird can do. Roy loses his footing, and we get a Pokemon trope that just doesn't grow old. In a pretty glorious save, our Wattrel has become Kilo Wattrel. Now both his size and his confidence have used Overgrow. It gave me major Gligar evolves to save Ash vibes. It is almost a little bit jarring considering I think Wattrel has been in less than 5 battles total, but to me it's not like the regional birds are known for how much you have to grind for them. Unfortunately, a catch and an evolution would have been too much. But this is still a win. Kilo really is one of the cooler looking birds, up there with Talonflame and Corviknight for me. So what a great memory for Roy to have. And a memory it'll remain since all the cameras were on airplane mode. And much like a plane, Wattrel's insecurity has taken off and Keela's soaring with pride. So it seems like great things lie ahead. Among others. Good stuff! Wattrel's evolution was pretty simple I think, but I'm betting / hoping it at least gets some more usage now. As far as Wattrel evolving before Fuecoco, who has clearly been putting in more work, I think that you gotta keep in mind that Florigato just evolved, so there's probably gonna be some space in between, which I'd bet next would be Coco, since his trainer is the one the most interested in battling, and drawing in a lot of interest himself. Rhyme, from the energy to the atmosphere to the design, was a perfect entrance. We love a chance encounter. Sure, Wattrel's bad attitude was never really addressed, but this isn't a group that holds grudges. It's a group that uplifts, and it's nice to see Kilowattrel come into its own with them. I'd say it was a pretty good episode with some rehashed concepts, but some also sweet moments. I give it a B.